Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, Abeer's Book Reviews, and today I'll be reviewing this book, 1984 by George Orwell. Now, obviously, if you haven't read it, you would have at least heard of the book because this has been around for quite some time, and it has been used to describe a certain set of ideas that basically dictators use when they talk about things. So the book is a dystopian piece of fiction which is set in 1984, and it chronicles the journey of Winston Smith. He lives in one of the so-called supercontinents of Oceania, which were set up after World War II. And this book is basically about the people in control of Oceania, Big Brother, and the party of Big Brother. It is, to put it very concisely, it is a surveillance state, which is a totalitarian, authoritarian, dictatorial government. And it follows their journey, or it follows rather Winston's journey of how, despite working for the party and for the government, he grows to identify their propaganda. He starts questioning things. He starts to develop his own freedom and his own thoughts, or at least he has a craving to do so. And it talks about what happens to the likes of Winston in such an authoritarian state. And obviously, this is very dystopian, and it's set, quite. It's not quite something you would see playing out anytime soon in any place, except for maybe North Korea, where they have this total control and total surveillance over their populace. But nonetheless, it talks about Winston's journey and how he starts questioning the propaganda. And by propaganda, I mean literally rewriting history and creating enemies out of nowhere. So the party of Big Brother in this book, they constantly are rewriting history. And that is quite literally what they do whenever they want to push or change a certain piece of propaganda to either make them more money or fit their political narrative, advance their motives, maybe capture more territory, whatever it may be. They find all the pieces of media with their previous propaganda in it. They gather them all and they destroy it. And after destroying that, they put out new pieces of media, right? That includes videos, news, newspapers, television, anything. They print out new versions of them and they put them into circulation. So now, with no evidence of any previous claims or previous propaganda, the populace also starts to believe the new narrative that has been created, and it shows how brainwashed a populace can get and how they sort of morph into blind followers. And another example of this propaganda spreading is the creation of enemies. So earlier in the book, the main enemy of the state of Oceania was a certain country, and once the Big Brother party decided that it perhaps is more beneficial to them to shift their enemy, or at least in the public's perception, to shift their enemy, they do so, and they take all the books that have been published, all the newspapers that have been published, they destroy them, and they print out new ones saying now, instead of X, Y is our enemy and has always been our enemy. So those are just some of the tendencies of a dictatorial state in trying to control its populace in totality. They don't want any dissent. And the book goes so far as to introduce the concept of the thought police, where obviously anything in the written word can be traced back to you and you'll automatically be silenced in an authoritarian state. But this book introduces the concept of the thought police, which are basically individuals who have been trained by the state to identify someone even thinking of dissenting or going against the state. So that is how dystopian it gets, where the people inside of the state don't even have their own freedom of thought, because just the thought of going against the popular narrative or questioning anything can get you silenced. Now, I don't want to ruin the book too much. It's an absolutely amazing piece of work by George Orwell. It is a pretty short read, but it has a lot of volume and a lot of content in it. And, obviously it was inspired, or it was written during a time where George Orwell must have drawn a lot of inspiration from some of the authoritarian states of those times, such as Soviet Russia. There was Maoist China, Germany under Hitler's rule, Italy under Mussolini's rule. All of these states had certain elements of silencing dissent and wanting total control. And I think Orwell does a pretty amazing job of putting all of them together into a sort of warning for people, because it shows you how the process of conversion from a very benevolent, populist, people-loving state goes from being just that into its total opposite. It's the antithesis of what it's set out to be, which is now a dictatorial state. It can sort of be seen as a warning of how that happens and what are the various things undertaken by the government once it is in the process of undergoing such a transformation. You start seeing more suppression of free thought. You start seeing more elements of control over the individual, and sort of, I don't want to get very political with the book, obviously, but there are certain elements of this in this book which can be extrapolated into real life, to sort of serve as a warning, perhaps, for people who feel that a certain country or a certain city or a certain government might be heading that way. So yeah, that is pretty much all about the book. Again, I want you to read it for yourself to truly understand it. I don't want to ruin it too much by giving away a lot of the content, because it is a very powerful and a very impactful book once you read it. And I don't do this for every book, but I also took some certain notes, and I think it's important to read such books because they have stood the test of time, and they can give you an insight into certain aspects of society that you might not have really given a thought to previously. So yeah, that's basically it. Hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure hit the like button if you did. If you're new and haven't already done so, subscribe to the channel to keep receiving more videos like this one. I've been Abeer Rao, and thanks for watching.